Hello and welcome to another video from Alogo Analysis, explaining to our users and our future users how you can best use the Alogo Move Pro sensor. And today we have some super interested long-time users, and I'm going to say like perfectionist analyzers of the data. We have a team from Stall High in Texas in the US. So I'm going to hand over to Kendra to introduce herself and Stall High, tell us a bit about you and what you do, because your world is completely different to my show jumping world.
Britt, thank you so much for the invite today. We are very excited to share how we use Alogo. We refer to it lovingly as our stride data device. And it, started several years ago when we created an online coaching platform for a very unique audience. We are barrel racers. So we compete in professional rodeo. We run a cloverleaf barrel pattern around 355-gallon drums, and the fastest time wins. Our niche customer, the girl that we really like to help the most, what we nerd out on at Stall High, is being able to help our riders run a half a second faster without having to buy a new horse, without going the traditional route of just grind and drill and ride longer, ride harder. And the Alogo is really helping us prove our program and really open the eyes, not just for our students, but our entire audience in the Western riding world, that just because we've ridden our whole lives, many of us, doesn't necessarily mean that we are attuned with how well we ride. We honestly had no idea until we embraced the technology, started learning how to use it, how to apply it. I've got my teammates with me today, Sherry McKenzie, also Texas Cowgirl, and she's the one who really pushed for us to use the Alogo in our program because admittedly it was over my head, and I really didn't know how to incorporate the technology. Kelli Crowley is from Oregon, so she's on the other side of the United States from us. But, thanks to technology today, we can be together every day online, help our students. And it's what we really love to do. We're learning a lot about ourselves through this process. And the data is undeniable. We can argue with ourselves. We can argue with our horses. We can argue with our spouses, our coaches, our friends, but you can't argue with that dashboard looking you in the face.
Absolutely not. And Kendra, half a second, like what is that the difference between? Because it doesn't seem like much.
Oh, it's an eternity. In the sport of barrel racing, a half a second is considered what we call a division. So
Okay.
typically the sport runs on a 4D format, so 4 divisions. Sometimes you'll have a 5D, like a 5 division, and everyone is split by half a second. So
Oh,
the
wow.
fastest time of the day wins the first division, the 1D. And they'll pay out depending, if there's 100 entries, it may only pay 2 or 3 spots in each division. But if there's 700 entries, it might pay over 10 placings in every division. So if the fastest time of the day is, say, a 15.0 second run, and that wins the 1D, the first division, well, then you skip half a second and it starts paying out again at a 15.5 second run. And
Whoa.
then it goes a
Okay.
half second. So it would be a 16.0. And Britt, there's hundreds of thousands of dollars in horse value in a half second.
Whoa,
Hundreds of
my
thousands of
mind
dollars.
has just been blown. Kendra.
That's how we
That's
roll.
incredible. So cool. All right. Well, Sherry, tell us a bit about you. How did you discover this Alogo system, and why do you love using it?
Well, similar to Kelli, I and Kendra both grew up riding. Didn't really get into barrel racing till later on, but essentially grew up on a ranch and started riding when I was like 3 years old. So I had a pretty good foundation coming in, more from the working side than got interested in high school rodeo and went down that path. So let's just skip a minute, and then I met Kendra through a mutual friend. We'll say a minute and not years. And so we got connected, and I started doing the Stall High program and learning more, and becoming a better rider. really definitely fine tuning and polishing up my barrel pattern and started working with her. And I don't know, somehow it came up in conversation once, and I'm like, wait a minute, what is that? And she's like, nah, don't worry about it. I think it was the third time of me asking her about it. I was like, I will take it and do it in my own time. And she's like, if you want it, you can start looking into it. And then introduced me to David. And so we had a couple of phone calls with him. And then I just started playing with it. I come from the HR world, and data analytics, especially when it comes to like healthcare plans, is something that I've done professionally. And so my mind just works that way. And as I was writing, I've had trainers over the years like, did you feel that? And sometimes I'll say, yeah, I really did. And then there's others that I'm like, yeah, I'm not really sure that I did. And so, and it's like, what does this feel? And for a data person, it's really hard to just count on a feel. And even though the better I got at writing, the more my field developed. And so when I had a chance to put some data behind it and see, that just really helped. It helped me dial in my feel and increase it. And also, I felt better because I'm like, it's not, because there's a lot of different trainers out there, and they'll tell you, well, this feels better. Well, this way is better. Well, it's great. And some of them may go and win the world with it. And it may work for them, but it wasn't working for me. And so that's where I loved and I really got excited. Now, trust me, I've had my days where I wanted to throw that thing in the dirt.
I'm always like so hopeful. I'm like, right, what is it going to say? What is it going to say today? And then I'm like, damn it, I thought I did so well on balancing. And
same.
Well, and I love that we can use the data to back up our program. And so when somebody says, you're way off base, I was like, well, let me show you some data that might differ, an opinion with you on that one. So that was really where I got excited, and we started building the program from there.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic, Sherry. That is such a cool story. And I feel like lots of people can resonate at different levels of your story, from data analytics to being in a completely different profession. And a lot of us can relate to the feel and how that's developed and have our own journey with feel. So that's absolutely perfect. Thank you.
I love that I was able to win Kendra over. Now, she's not going to sit down and go through all the data, but when I show it to her and say, hey, look, and we can connect it to pictures or videos, because that's what I started doing, is like, look, on this one, you're, riding heavy to the left or whatever you're doing. And then we can get the picture of the video out and we can go back and see it. And that's how I sold her.
Yes. Oh, great job. I love it. I know I'm starting to think, who can I encourage to analyze my data for me? Because I do it, but I reckon somebody else who's like a data nerd would like just love it. Not that it's needed to use the system, like you can still get a lot out of it like I do, but the partnership that you two have is brilliant. So fantastic. And Kelli, hello. Tell us a bit about you and your love of the sensor.
Yes. So I grew up riding my whole life. I did not, like Sherry, I did not start barrel racing until high school. And I was I say I'm not the barrel racer's barrel racer. And so I never really took formal barrel training because unfortunately our industry has a lot of things that really kind of went against the horsemanship core that I grew up with. But that's not to say that I hadn't tried some of those things and failed at them. And that also I wasn't still struggling as a barrel racer, like trying to bridge the gap between the horsemanship that I had, that I was confident in and have been confident in, and then trying to go perform as a barrel racer and not feeling like I was having to choose between the two worlds. And that's kind of where I found Stalhigh and Kendra, and immediately realized I was in the right place because she started talking about some of the things that are really important to me and that kind of core that I check everything against. And so in that process, I started out doing a challenge online clinic with her and Stalhigh, and now I'm a coach. And also I've had 2 opportunities to ride in person with Kendra. So 2 summers ago, I think it was, I got to ride in Idaho, and that's when I first saw the Alogo, and it was kind of right when we all started using it, and I was like, what is that? I was like, just like couldn't let it go. I was like, I gotta get one of those. Like, somehow it wasn't something I could get yet, but I was like, man, I need that thing. Now I have one and I have used it, and like Sherry, there's numerous times, I'm not gonna lie, that I was like, this thing's just wrong, and I just don't want to look at it. Because it's really hard when you do have that horsemanship background, you know you ride well, when it's telling you you're, you know, and we are the perfectionists, like we want that 0. So when it's telling you your degrees off, or, you know, throwing anomalies, like you're like, what in the world? Like, no way. I didn't feel that. Like, there's something's wrong with it. But then when you go back to it and you're like, man, you really, really like focus in on what you're doing, and the subtle things in your body, it just makes such a huge difference. And so even though it is sometimes frustrating to have that kind of humble pie, it's very, very beneficial. I want to be a better rider all the time. I don't want to stop improving, and I also want to be a good horsewoman. Like, I want my horses, I've always kind of said, like, oh man, if I died and came back as a horse, I'd want to belong to me. I know it'd be good. To be true. And there's so many things that, like, you just can change subtle little things and improve your horse without having to, you know, go through expensive vet treatments and supplements and things that really they wouldn't choose for themselves. And so again, just learning, having like the actual numbers and that data to look at and be able to in real time change super simple subtle things that make such a huge difference. And I'm all about the maximizing the stride length in a barrel horse. I don't have big running horses, I have little cow ponies. That's my style. I love that kind of horse. And so if you're talking about beating a running horse that's several hands taller, I need to maximize every bit of stride and speed that I can. And it's the stride length that's the true speed, and not the number of strides. So that's where I love that about the device.
Yes, yeah, just nailed it right there. It's not the stride number, it's the length, the coverage. Same thing in show jumping. You know, we love a horse that covers the ground softly and simply, and effortlessly is the word I'm looking for. Yes. I also love it. This is particularly relevant to females. Like, we experience like such a huge range of emotions daily in comparison to men. And when we have a device like this and the data, we get to see it. Something I've trained myself to do is look for those little tiny like bits of improvement, not like huge like shifts and huge changes. And as a woman, some days we can feel amazing and be like, yeah, that was the best ride ever, and like expect to see the dial like shift 2 degrees. And then you see it and you're like, it's shifted 0.5, and you're like, well, actually that's actually really good in the scheme of like all the degrees. 0.5 on a percentage basis is huge, so I'll take it. And so I think for women in particular, it gives this grounding to our training. You know, we can come back and go, despite how we felt today, what did the data say, and how can we, you know, allow that to keep us on track, you know, and keep us looking forward and positive and constructive about our ride. So,
Yes,
yeah.
and we need more of that.
Yes.
Admittedly, our sport is primarily women. We have some
Okay.
men that barrel race, but primarily women, and very dated, like steeped in tradition, a lot of false beliefs, and we all fell for them. It just seems we've kind of all been indoctrinated with like the hustle mentality: ride longer, spend more time in the saddle, ride harder, you know, hustle, really spend a lot of time with your horses, which is not a bad thing unless you're riding in a way that damages them mentally or physically, or both. And because we tend to be more emotional, it can be very humbling to be handed, in essence, a report card. Like,
Yes.
here it is. And so my advice would be, don't be afraid to look at the numbers. It could ebb and flow. And what we're learning from you, Britt, is that it is important to pay attention to what's going on in other areas of our life that we have been bringing to the saddle and didn't know it. He just, oh,
Mm.
what baggage do we take to the barn with us? And we don't even give it a second thought, but our horse has to carry that burden. And the device lets us know, like,
Yeah.
it's nobody's fault, but when you know it's actually empowering, if you can get over, I'm going to say, when I can get over myself and what I think I know and how capable I think I ride, and just view it as an opportunity to become even better. It is an invitation. That's all it is. It can go, I can go back some days, I can be better some days. At least I know now I'm not riding blind. And when you look at it like that, it is extremely empowering.
Mm. It sure is. Yeah. It really is, Kendra. So that's such a beautiful segue. Let's get into some data analysis. Sherry, I'll let you explain a scenario.
Well, Kendra's been using her device over the last few days, and so she's been riding a few horses. So I picked one of the videos that I'm going to pop up and share my screen. She's doing a little barrel work, so you're going to see her in action. And then we're going to talk about a couple of the readings that came from the last few days.
Drum roll, please.
Take it away, Kendra. What are you doing here?
All right. So this is my gelding. His name's Pedro. He is 8 this year. And I actually started the barrel pattern on him pretty early on. Like I would say maybe as a 3 or 4 year old, but very intermittent. And as we started building the online coaching platform at Stall High, started learning a new way to ride, started embracing the technology, he's been on the back burner. I have not been riding him as much. And I brought him back to the barrel pattern this week. And what I sense is happening, and I have not seen the data, what I think is happening now is that Pedro is recalibrating to me. I know I must feel different to him because I've learned how to move my hips differently, move my hips more. I'm learning how to be more cognizant of my balance, of how much pressure is in my left and my right stirrup at any given moment. And like I was super happy with how well he came back to the barrel pattern. Um, his attention span, his focus, he is allowing me to manipulate, if you want to say, place his body, move his body and his posture into positions that I'm looking for. Sherry, I don't know what it looks like on your end. I don't know what the numbers look like. How did I do?
We're gonna make you wait on that one. Let's talk about what we see here, because I talked about the feel, and people are like, "Do you see this?" So, Kelli, do you want to talk about what you see in Kendra's writing, since you've never
Yeah,
seen this
well,
before? So, I
no,
want to
I
talk about.
haven't. Yeah, and I haven't seen Pedro in a good while. So, yeah, and I did see him in person as well in Idaho that summer. So, it's very interesting. He he looks almost like a different horse. I know he's a little bit thicker from the time off.
He's healthy.
And
So what do you see?
you know my saying, the best color is fat. That was my grandpa's saying. So, I love a fat horse, but I see he's more stretched in his top line, and he is like he looks freer in his back end. His hocks look more fluid. Like from what I've seen him before, he just looks like he looks longer and he
What?
looks taller. Like he
What?
just yeah, and I know he hasn't grown up, so yeah, he's just like he looks like a bigger, more powerful, but more like in his body, if that makes sense, kind of horse. And I know you asked like what I think of your riding, but I'm like, I can't stop looking at him. I know your riding's better.
That
But
just,
because you're supporting him, which I know we have the data and we'll see, but you've learned, you've been very diligent and you've learned, being a student yourself, how to better support your horse's stride and your horse's ability to use their top line and use from nose to tail, top to bottom, all of that. So what I see is him reflecting that in you. So it's pretty cool.
well, And sometimes we lose objectivity because he's mine and I see him every day. And I'm in the saddle. I typically don't watch him. So I didn't even pick up on that, Kelly. That makes my heart giddy to hear you say those things.
Like his
Like
neck literally looks longer.
giddy. Sherry, what do you see?
So I really like, and yes, I wish we had one of 6 months ago to see that he's lengthening his stride and that he's leveling out, and it looks like that hind end is definitely more engaged and moving. And then I'll say my other comment because I feel like I've already got the cheat sheet because I saw the data first. I I'm opposite of you ladies. I knew what to look for. So I'm going to go ahead and stop that.
What I'd like to say, Kendra, is that I haven't watched you ride very much, but it looks like you have a solid awareness of your sit bones and how you're sort of you look quite evenly weighted in your sit bones in the saddle.
Well,
Does that make sense?
That's a huge compliment.
The funny thing is that I don't think your standard barrel racer knows what sit bones are.
They're the bones that you use to sit
we know.
Yes, but for everyone else who's listening and watching, when you sit, depending on how much fat you've got, you'll either feel bone or you'll feel fat and then bone. Yes, so it's a bit of anatomy education as well.
Yes, and so Kendra's not seen this yet, so this is the data. Like I said, she's been riding the last 3 days, and so the one on the left is the one from 3 days ago on the 16th. And so, for those of you that are new to the Alogo, it measures the balance of the horse. And the first reading that we look at is the longitudinal balance, which is front to back. And so we want to achieve, and you'll think this is staged, but I believe this is Kendra's first zero. So she is a new member of what I call the Zero Club here at Sell High. And so this is at a walk, since most of the video was done at a walk, where she was perfectly centered. And that's not an easy thing to accomplish, even for accomplished riders, because of things that we have going on in our body. And then almost a zero on the lateral balance too. So 0.1 to the left. And I look back like 6 months ago, and I think that was like 2.5. So big improvement in that period of time. And we all know, depending on what's going on or what we're working on, that can move. But that was a really nice reading to get. So 3 days later,
Sherry, may I just say something there? I mean, the precision, right? We're not just talking 1 degree. It's 0.1 of a degree to the left. And now I get that 0.1 could be half a second in your world, which is just still blows my mind. But I look at that and I go, well, 0.1 to the left, it's practically a zero. Like, it's as close to zero as you could get. Like, that is phenomenal. And if we want to improve, well, you go, right, well, there's 0.1 left to go. There's so many perspectives you can have on this data. Yeah.
Well, and as we previously talked, we did a couple of classes, and where we had some of our students participate that have an Alogo, and that we did weekly classes with them. And of all the people that went through it, Kendra is now number 5 that's made the Zero Club. So not very many of them. We've had quite a few hit 0.1 or 0.2 and come super close. And that's when I jokingly came up with the Zero Club. It's an elite group.
I love it. I mean, I'm envisaging like a wall, or a big plaque, and people put their names on it when they join the club.
That's exactly it. And so, thank you for calling that out. That is a phenomenal reading, and super excited, especially since you haven't done a reading in a while, Kendra. So, to take a break from it and come back on one of the three horses and nail it at a walk. And then,
And
so
is that what you're aiming for? Because, and the reason I ask that is in show jumping, we want the horse to be a little bit centered to the back. We want him to be a little bit more on his hind end for jumping, not too much. But what's the ideal longitudinal balance that you're looking for?
so
I
with
don't
go ahead.
I honestly don't think we have enough data at speed to know, because it is going to vary. Our methodology, and one of our mottos is how to win at a walk. We're very methodical. We're very hyper focused on posture and stride, behavior, and how well the horse is moving and learning at a walk, because whatever they do at a run is what they've done at a walk. So they will replicate the exact same moves. And, ideally at a run, we are going to need them more on their hindquarters when they commit to the turn. They've got to stabilize in the ground because we're coming through a very sharp turn, three of them at a high rate of speed. But I feel like, Sherry, we just haven't gotten that far in the data collection. I haven't, myself personally, to really be answering what is the ideal. Sherry, do you have any different thoughts?
Well, at the walk, I definitely believe we're going to be really close to the zero, because we do want the head level. And as we're learning from one of our celebrity coaches, is in order for them to really engage that hind end at a walk, I'm seeing that zero is really the sweet spot there. And at the
Mhm.
run, again, I would agree with Kendra. I don't think that we have enough data yet. I'm starting to see some trends. And for the class that we did, was telling, when you do, like, we would do walk, trot, lope, and where it's a mixed gait. And then I was saying, really, we want to see between 0 and 1. In the runs that we've seen, I've seen them, some good runs come out at about a 3. And so when
To
you
the
try
back.
to balance out those 3
Yeah.
turns in there, plus, the run, hopefully we're running straight to the barrels and in between the barrels and home. That, I think it's going to continue. So stay tuned for that one, but that's where it is right now. Initial data. And again, I don't, I would agree. We don't have enough, but that's what the preliminary data is starting to show. Um, yeah, I love that. And I think too is, for anyone listening, if you're new in your journey, or the thing that really helped us is journaling while you're doing this, or getting notes into the readings themselves. Not only the three categories that the logo offers with the horse and the rider and what kind of activity, but putting in some notes in there, because like I rode the other night and I rode a little bit heavy to the right. Well, I was having a hard time that my horse wanted to keep drifting one direction, so I was correcting them, or trying to figure out what was going on with me. It was probably me sending them there. And so I wasn't surprised, but before I would have been down on myself going, well, why I used to ride heavy to the right, why did I go back? And so putting those notes in there of, what you're working on, if you're trying to lengthen the stride, or, at a trot or something like that, sometimes you can come with a front heavy reading because you're working on that. So that is really helpful in your
Correct.
journey to get those notes or keep a separate journal. So as we talked before, or if you're, just had a fight with your spouse and you go to ride and you're like, why is my horse all wound up? Well, gee, it might be coming from you.
Yeah, exactly.
Give
Exactly.
yourself some grace and saying it was a crazy day at work or whatever. That way, when those readings come back, what you probably weren't expecting them, then you can give yourself some grace and go, okay, we're going to try again next time.
Yes, yeah, absolutely perfect. I've also found that because we ride on different surfaces like sand, grass, sand with fiber in it, um, it recording that on the session, which you can choose the type of footing in the settings of each session, because I've noticed a difference in the data from competing on different surfaces as well. So you want to make sure that when you're doing a comparison, um, if you are comparing between different surfaces or different circumstances, that you're aware of that when you're reviewing the data.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And we've actually used it to collect data on some of the different products that we offer, especially our saddle. And so we'll
Yes.
intentionally do a comparison of their original equipment, or if they're test riding in one of our saddles, or they just got it, just to show the difference, and trying to keep everything else the same. And so the other reading over here, the point 0.9 to the back, which again, to your point, I don't view that as a bad reading. If we are going to be off of zero, I'd like to, we want to see it to the back. And so point 0.9 is still very much in the green and still a good reading. But then when we come down to the lateral balance, then we're throwing a caution. So we're in the red zone, and we're kind of at the very edge of it, which is why it's throwing a caution. So that would be a time where, if it was my reading, I'm going, okay, what happened? Was I, you know, uh, first of all, we always double check to make sure the sensor is centered on the cinch correctly, or the girth correctly, and so that it doesn't throw a bad reading from that.
Mhm.
So, and that's what I was telling
And just
Kendra.
a point on that. I used to be really fixated about having the sensor like in the center, and the technology has developed such that it has its own calibration. So yes, we want to get it, roughly kind of in the center, but the first 10 seconds of your ride is that calibration period. So it's going to pick up if you're a little bit one way to the other or not.
Okay.
And so, from this point forward, you don't need to be so hyper fixated on it, because this thing's like knows where it is in 3D, which is really cool.
Yeah, no, that is great.
Yeah.
And when I was first playing or testing the device, or learning how to use it, everyone in our group has already heard me tell this story. It's like, I know how to ride centered. There's no reason I should be throwing a 5 to the left. What the heck is going on? Well, my horse has had a hip injury since he was young, and so I'm like, it's him. And so convinced that it was him, I put the device on the saddle, and I walked him and hand trotted him, just to prove to myself that it was him, and that way I'd know how much to adjust the reading for him. And yeah, it wasn't him. But for any of you questioning and really, needing to help you serve you some humble pie to yourself. Yeah, there's been a couple of moments where I'm like, God darn, I know I'm right. And my dad is like, no, you're not. And so, the reason I picked this reading, and out of the readings, so this was the one farthest out, is because what I want to show you on the next page. Because we have a lot of people who are like, oh, it doesn't really matter if you're off center a little bit. It's the horses are big. They can, these barrel racers are, they're pretty little, and these horses are huge. So why are you so focused on that? And this is what I love to show them. So if I can get it to change pages.
And the video that you showed us, was that of the most recent on the 18th, right? Or was that on the 16th?
The video with the red shirt that we looked at was on the 16th. That was the first day I rode this week.
Okay.
And if I'm correct, Sherry, the one with the arrow to the left, that was yesterday.
Yeah, that was yesterday.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, but this is where Kelli was talking about her cow ponies. Is that an extra foot, and this is at a walk. And so, when Kendra joined the Zero Club, the average length to the stride was 2.44 feet. And for some big horses that you're probably used to riding, Britt, that might not be very much. But here's the cool part. When she got the caution zone, because she was heavy to the left, it almost lost a full foot.
And that is shocking to me. So here's what, if I had to analyze the difference, and it's very humbling. I had no idea I was riding differently. It feels the same to me. But if I really step back and look at my week with that horse objectively, I probably got more comfortable the third day on him. I wasn't as diligent in paying attention because I just was so happy, like, hey, he feels great. He's doing so great. I was more focused on him than me.
So we revert
Mm.
back, as you probably figured out. We revert back to our old habits, and so
Mm-hmm.
when we're
Yeah.
aware and mindful of them and working on them, is that's when we probably do our best. But when we
Yep.
relax and go back, and so the other thing that I love to for our barrel racing friends that I love to look at is, okay, in addition to the foot difference and stride length, the amount of energy that this horse was putting out, if we drop down to the energy, is 78 point kcals versus 161 kcals. To go
Yep.
have a shorter stride of almost a foot
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
is how much harder are you making the horses work?
And
Mm-hmm.
how much more time are you costing yourself? How much more likely is your horse to break down? And then you have added expense of either losing, not getting to compete at events, not running to optimum level, vet care, pain relief. You think about the calories and efficiencies. And over the years, Kelli mentioned that this horse has gained weight. He's been one of my harder keepers. And so all of this is just, it's very, it's very eye opening. It's very helpful to know. You can think you know, but do you really know? Well,
And
now we do.
what I'm taking away from this is when I feel confident in a ride, was it because I felt comfortable, or was it actually
Mhm.
a good ride from a data perspective, from a balance? So I'm taking away,
Right.
like, actually checking with myself and going, right, like, let's not be comfortable today. Let's be technical. Let's be relaxed. Let's, focus, because I think being comfortable can sometimes be collapsed with not being present, like switching
Well,
off.
that's the word. You
Yeah.
collapse. We collapse back into our comfort zone. And I would venture to say I was more careful his first day back. I was more
Mm,
cognizant, more present. I was more diligent to pay attention to every little detail. And
mm,
then it felt so good to me. Had I looked at the data, oh my gosh, we're looking at it now, Sherry.
yeah.
Now to go back, I know not to make that mistake and let my posture collapse.
Mm, mm. Also, what you mentioned about this, the stride length and the speed of it, and it's not the number of strides. So when we look at, okay, 2.44 foot, and on average, his cadence is 50 strides a minute on the 16th, the first ride, and average speed is 3 miles per hour for each stride. Sorry, speed, not stride. And then the duration of each stride is 0.03 of a second difference. So not only are you covering more ground, 2.44 foot, when you're balanced, you're actually doing more strides in a minute, and they're quicker. So that's like three
Mhm.
elements there that are having you be faster ultimately
Mhm.
than,
And it's easier for them. I mean, because the
yeah.
energy being exerted has dropped drastically, and so
Mm-hmm.
you
And that's
can
why
you
they
can
can actually stride out, because they're relaxed. They're
yes.
not having to expend so much energy trying to balance, like counterbalance you because you're off balance. Yeah.
Mhm. So it's good.
So
So
that's
good.
that's the data. I was really excited when I started pulling it down and trying to figure out what to present today. Is that's what sold me on this? Is you know if I can lengthen my horse's stride a foot at a walk, what can we do at a run?
Run.
Mm,
And how
mm,
does that transfer? And we've seen it from the times that Kendra and I've gone to run, and I don't have it. I believe my horse's stride. He's good size for a barrel horse, probably, similar, maybe smaller on the smaller side of what you're used to. But his stride between runs lengthened by like 2 feet.
wow. That's
because
huge.
I was in the way so much on the first run. I was hindering him, and I was freer and trusting him more to do his
Mm.
job that he could stride out. And so,
Mm-hmm.
for those that are analytical, a lot of us overthink it and we think we have to help them every step of the way. And that's
Mm.
just causing them to not be able to stride out or free up their stride and lengthen. And he's still
Mm.
got more because I still have more issues to work through.
Yeah. That you now know about.
Yes, yes. And that's what's been really fun about this journey.
And looking at this view of the data, this is just one element, right?
Yes.
The balance, the stride length, and uh, is that this is relevant to every single equestrian sport, being balanced and stride length, like not just barrel racing. This has use for show jumping, for dressage, eventing, cutting, whatever it is. Like this type of analysis that we're doing isn't just specific to barrel racing. So thank you. Like you've just given the biggest gift to anyone who wants to use this um, and improve themselves. It's amazing. Thank you.
Well, and I love that, like, when we've gone to races after working on our balance and the training that we do through Stall High is, we see, world champions there, we see other professional barrel racers there. And when our horses come out after running, they're not breathing near as hard as what other horses are. And that's a visible
Wow.
difference. And that has to be better on their bodies. We're injecting less. We're seeing less injuries with our horses because we're learning how to, with the device and the training, we're learning and teaching them how to use their bodies more efficiently and in an optimal way.
Yep.
Mm.
I have a funny story, Britt. So it never fails when I go to a rodeo with it. People can see the little green light flashing underneath. And I've had several people when I'm getting it ready and I've got my little phone out, they'll be like, ma'am, what is that thing? And I said, do you have a quarter? I'm trying to turn my horse on. You got a quarter on you? And they
That's so
laugh.
funny.
That's not, it's a little teeny tiny green light, and you wouldn't think because it's not a big device that nobody knows it's there, but they are watching.
Mm. People do
It
notice because
does, it does stand out.
yes, yeah, absolutely. They notice straight away. I like to call it my little extra rocket power, like it's just a little
Yeah.
jet under there.
Like,
People's eyes just go like
Full
so
battery
wide.
pack.
They're like, yeah, so good. All right, Sherry, what else were we going to look at?
well, that's all I have lined up for today. I do.
Oh, awesome. Cool.
If you want to pull out the one that we looked at the other day, I can grab that real quick
Yeah,
too.
yeah. What about the tack change? I think that was really interesting. The change in saddle, the one that we looked at. I love
I'm
that. And I
so
think
glad you
that'll
asked
be,
me that one.
yeah, we'll do that and then we can save the rest for another day, another
Well,
time. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. So, Sherry, I'm curious to go back and look at these results as well, because that is one thing that I changed from the 16th to the 18th. I was riding on the 16th in a prototype saddle pad that I've been working on and collecting data on, but I sent part of that pad to the shop because I wanted to refine some of the material. And so on the 18th, I was in an older style saddle pad. How much did that play come into play? Well, that's why we have the device. We'll be collecting more information and we'll be able to answer that question over the span of time.
Yes. Yes. Very interesting. Good pickup. Better put that in your notes as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So this was a fun one. I actually got to be there. I wasn't there the last 3 days, and so um, Kendra rode in an old saddle on a different horse. This is Daisy, and this was the reading in the old tack. And so longitudinal, not too bad. We're still in the green, 1.6 to the back. So again, not anything to be alarmed over. We'd like, and this one's at all gaits, and so that's why I'm like, I'm happy with a 1.6 to the back. And then laterally, we see her heavy to the left, 5.5 to the left, throwing that caution again. because so heavy to the left. We changed the tack and we changed the saddle, and that was literally, I think you rode for 5 to 10 minutes in the old tack. We talked a bit, and then we changed the saddle out, and I think the pad stayed the same on this one. And then we see a big difference. We go to 0.7 to the back and 1.2 to the right. So huge shift from 5.5 to the left to 1.2 to the right.
Massive.
From primarily changing the saddle. And so now what does that do to the horse? We go from 2.74 at the canter versus 4.91 at the canter in the different saddles. So here we're seeing a 2-foot difference. I mean, her length of her stride almost doubles from
That's
having
phenomenal.
a saddle that fits well.
Yeah.
Not only the horse, but Kendra.
Yeah.
Yep.
Huge.
And this is an example of like a very modern type barrel saddle. They're made to hold you in, but they really just hold your hips in an artificial or a more static position. They have a tall rise in the front, a smaller seat, and a tall cantle in the back. And the saddle that we ride in is it's a wider tree underneath you. It is a more flat seat underneath you. There's not a high rise and there's not a high cantle. So this saddle, this is the Bullseye. It allows our hips and our pelvis to move more freely with the horse and have more free range of motion rather than restriction in most barrel saddles today, most modern day barrel saddles.
And because the tree is also wider, the horse is not restricted in its movement because it has the space. Yeah, we find the same with there was like an evolution of the modern female jumping saddle. They wanted it to be smaller in the mid sort of tree area, and so then saddles started being built with wider gullets at this front, and then they'd go smaller in the middle and then wider at the back. But a horse's back doesn't do that, so we need to be having a saddle for the horse, and as best we can, the riders need to sort of adapt themselves to have the most comfortable horse.
100%. And I've said this all along. If we have a saddle custom fitted to the horse, but which is very popular in our event, but it doesn't serve us as the rider, what have we accomplished? Nothing. One negates the other or makes the other worse altogether. So we really want to look at every horse that gets a Bullseye saddle. We want to be cognizant of that. We don't disagree. A saddle does need to fit a horse. But what's more important is that it fits the rider, because that's the person putting the pounds of pressure on top of the saddle.
Yeah, and I can add to that because I went down the rabbit hole of custom fit trees that's so popular in the barrel racing industry, and retreed saddles because they didn't fit, and my horse was quote unquote hard to fit and all of that. And the tree or the saddle that I got back finally after years of struggling to find one that would fit her, that was custom for her, actually caused her to be more back sore than she ever had been before. But it's because, now I know, it was because of the position that it was holding me in on her. So maybe it could fit her back when she's standing still. But then you add a rider on top of that who's being held in a really unnatural riding position. And then you're trying to add speed and movement, changes of speed and changes of direction. And it just, it when you say it that way and you take our womanly emotion out of it and you objectively look at, what those facts are, it makes sense. Like, you can't just sit in one stuck position on your horse and be out of balance and expect your horse to be able to perform. So just knowing that my horse was back sore and she hasn't been since changing that to a Bullseye. So it's just really because in the Bullseye, again, like I can sit the way I need to sit it's almost like I grew up riding bareback a lot. And so that's kind of what it feels more like. You have the ability to move with your horse and feel your horse move, and you're not restricted. And I, in this process, like I had tried some other borrowed a saddle from someone that was very popular, and I had a very expensive popular barrel saddle before, but this one was like the newest best, and I sat in it and I rode in it and I was like, this is in my way. Like I just felt like, it was just doing everything wrong. And so it's very, again, so valuable to have the numbers that don't lie to back up the things that we're like, well, I think I'm right, or I think this might be the wrong thing, or I think this might help, or this might be hindering. And to actually have the numbers, the proof, to not lay in bed at night scrolling your phone trying to find answers that aren't helping.
Yeah, like which TikTok is going to answer my question of why my horse
exactly.
We've all been there.
Exactly.
Okay. Brilliant.
And the data again shows that when the horse and rider are more comfortable, that again they're using less energy. And so we see that the energy that's being exerted at the 2.74 stride with the old data is 37K calorie. It drops down to 27K when it picks up almost an additional 2 feet. And when you talked about the strides, you can see the stride difference, and you can see the difference in the speed. And so again, that horse is freed up to be able to move better, and which translates into faster times for us.
That's what we
and
want.
Happier horses.
Yes, that too.
Absolutely.
So win-win.
It is absolutely, and I have been just so pleased that we've had this conversation. Like, thank you for accepting our invitation today, Kendra, Sherry, and Kelli. I have learned not only how you use the data and Alogo's technology, but I've learned a lot and gotten insight into your philosophy and your values around how you train for barrel racing, and I really love that. So can you please let everyone know if they want to get in touch with you? Like, what are the best ways to do that online, and so we can, have people, carry on their journey.
I'm so glad you asked. So obviously we're on all the major platforms: YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. We also have a hotline where people can text us anytime, and that area code, so there will be a 1 in front of it if it's international, area code 940-291-9090. Email info@stallhigh.com. And we also have an app. So the Stall High app is available in the App Store and Google Play.
Oh, fantastic. Everywhere. I love how you're just, wherever people are, you can meet them. That's so beautiful. Really, really amazing. Well, look, I feel like this is not going to be the last time we have a conversation like this. So thank you so much for your time, your beautiful energy. And if anyone has any questions from watching, then please, put it all in the comments or send us an email, and we'll get back to you. We'll do more videos, and here's to learning more and being better for ourselves and our horses. Thank you, ladies.
Thanks, Britt.
Thank you.
For having